Diana, I got your number from your resume on LinkedIn. My name is Sarah, and I'm an old student of, and like you, we had a relationship. I don't know the circumstances of your relationship with him, but it concerns me to see his behavior continued long after I knew him. I'm curious if you would be willing to talk to me about your experience. If not, I respect that.
Sarah, I am at a loss of words, but also have so much to say. Yes, I would love to talk to you about this. Were you a student in Iowa? This is Diana.
This is Sarah.
And this is Blooming After Grooming, our podcast.
I saw it on Facebook like an hour ago and I liked it and I have not read it yet.
Okay. I think she really did a good job. And
Good.
She interviewed a couple of like the big bosses, it seems, like Matt Drange and Mary Jo Grant and Terry Miller. And I think she interviewed another survivor. I think, yeah, she did a really good job highlighting the problem, how common it is, the long-term impacts, and like connecting it all to Jeanette McCurdy's book. So, yeah.
Nice.
I'm glad it turned out well.
Good. Well, are you maybe one of those big bosses now, Diana? Like, do you feeling like maybe you, Diana, are one of the players in that field now these days? I mean, we have a podcast. We have a whole podcast.
Yeah, I guess. Sarah, are we big boss ladies?
Everybody's.
Are we just big bosses?
Maybe. I mean, people said yes to be on our crazy podcast that has absolutely no knowledge of how to be a podcast correctly. I'm still doing it.
Yeah. Hey, look at us.
Yeah. Don't sometimes you gotta take a step back and acknowledge your accomplishments. I know it's very un-Midwestern of us though. Do you need to say anything weird just to get out of your system before she gets on? That's recording, but she can't hear you.
Why aren't you mad at him?
Ask it, dude. I don't think that's unreasonable. You could just say, are you mad at him? Don't be presumptuous. Okay, is there a part of you that's... I think you can ask the question, but instead of saying, why aren't you mad at him? You could ask, is there a part of you that's mad at him? Right? And then you say, because if I wrote a book, it would be a very much more aggressive, scathing vibe. And I think we've talked about it. It's neither one is better or right. Yeah. But it's jarring when it's so different than your lived experience. But that's good because people who listen to this podcast that were never abused, our story is jarring because it's not their lived experience.
Yeah. And I totally would not have phrased it in such a way. I was just letting it out of my body. But that is what I would be trying to get to is I'm so mad at this guy for you. Yeah. Okay, here she is. Here we go. Oh my God. All right. I'm gonna let you explain. You'll know when it's your turn to pop in.
I usually do.
You usually do. Okay, here we go. Megan Farison is a fellow Midwesterner. Among other things, she is also a speaker, musician, author, and voice coach. You really hear her light up at the end talking about singing and music, and it's very clear that this is her passion. But today we talk about her 2024 debut book, a memoir called Dissonance, which has received praise and awards and honorable mentions. You can hear how nervous I am talking to Megan because this book was a challenging read for me. Sarah and I talk about what made it sometimes difficult to read parts of the book. And it's a unique opportunity to be able to talk to the author or the person who created the content that we're discussing. And it ended up being a really great conversation. I had no reason to be nervous. There's lots of laughing, and we really hope that you enjoy it. Welcome to the show, Megan Farison.
I can hear you just fine. So I don't want to be shouting at you. That's what I'm worried about. Hey, I just want to be careful. I'm not shouting.
You can shout at Megan. There's going to be shouting happening. Let's get that out of the way. Feel free to shout with us.
We can just go and see what happens. Whatever you want to do. It's your world. It's your world. I'm just living in it.
Let's go and see what happens is kind of the theme of tonight because Megan, you're.
I forgot we were supposed to be on at 4, me and Diana, and I was still at work. Oh. And then I was like, but we've got like 45 minutes until the interview. And Diana's like, no, she gets on at 4:30. So I have just been a chaos tornado coming into this.
Amazing. Sorry. That's perfect. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I had texted you earlier today, Megan, because it has been, yes, there's so much that I wanted to bring up in the intro meeting when we had you on, but I was only maybe, I don't know, 100 pages into the book, and I just wanted to keep all of that for this episode. But now that we're here, oh my God. The reason that Sarah and I had a plan to do like a little just one-on-one debrief because your book was very emotional and speaking for me, challenging. Yeah, so we wanted to be able to have a chance to just talk to each other before that, and we didn't really have a chance. So that's why we're like, all right, we're just going to go with it and see what happens. I'm also really excited about that because I was telling Sarah, like, I want to have an honest conversation with someone whose experience is just so different than mine, and I think also different than Sarah's. And one of the things that Sarah says, and I think the intro episode of our podcast, is that mine and her experience is just, there's two examples of what grooming and sexual abuse can look like. And your experience is also just one example, but it's so different. And because of that, I had just some really intense reactions and emotions about it. So here we go. We're going to talk about it. Sarah, did you want to add anything or like why you wanted a debrief?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just you're the first guest we've had where we're talking about like a piece of art or, literature or whatever that we didn't already kind of like talk about outside of Groom Scroll. Like our Groom Scroll is the only other thing that like we watch or take in separately and then we come together and we like talk about, but we're not talking about it with the maker in the room with us. Mm-hmm. And so I think part of us were like, how do we do this? Like, this is very much season 2 for us. It's just like, how the hell do we do what we're doing right now? Because we haven't interviewed people before. And, how do we kind of fold all of that into, our flawed system of having a podcast, which is chaotic and,
and
hilarious
awesome
and messy
and awesome.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. Yeah. So I think it was more of just that kind of, it could have been any book, but that kind of like, do we need a debrief first? Like, should we talk about this? Like, I'm not sure. So yeah, I don't know. I am interested to talk about just, obviously your lived experience. And I think we said this in the, our meet and greet call last time of like, you don't have to go into anything in great detail. Share what you want to share, why you were called to write a book, what the experience of writing that book was like, releasing it out into the world, and then how that has felt for you watching other people react to this extremely vulnerable piece of artwork that you made, and what that whole trippy experience has been like. So yeah, I'm excited to chat today.
Well, thank you so much for reading it. I'm so excited to be here with you too. And I just want to tell you how grateful I am that I know you relate to it, right? So of course I think I just don't take it for granted. Sometimes it's harder for survivors to read books like about survivors, right? And because we get those intense emotions, I just want to tell you how grateful I am for the two of you. I want to start that way. When you asked about, how did this book come to be? I will say, without giving away, like some big stuff that we may or may not get into, that I had reached a point in my life where I was in a severe state of crisis, where I was afraid I was going to lose everything. And I knew I needed to take drastic measures. It was going to take something big to save me from myself. And that is not to say, like, I blame myself for the abuse or any of that. Mm-hmm. But at some point, it's like, it's not our fault that it happened to us, that these horrible things happened, but it becomes our responsibility in how we manage it and deal with it. Yeah. Nobody else is going to do that for us. So it has to be us. And so I remember very clearly that I was sitting in front of my computer, and this voice, just like this deep voice from inside of me, just said, "You're going to write your story." And I just knew, like, this is what I need to do. I need to take this pain and I need to turn it into purpose. I need to be able to make sense of it. I need to be able to, because I still at that point, I was so deep into the cognitive dissonance and so deep into the trauma bond and the Stockholm syndrome and all of that stuff that it was like, I have got to figure this out now and as
Mhm.
quickly as I can. And I'm on a certain timeline, and you all know why, right? Like, I only have
Yeah.
so many years to figure this out before I've got to deal with a potentially dangerous issue.
Mhm.
But even before that thing happens, there's so much I could do to self-sabotage before that even goes down, right? I remember I called my husband and I said, "Hey, I think I'm gonna write my story." And he said, "That does not surprise me." He knows me he knows me very, very well, and he said, "You know, whether people know it or not, it's true, it happened, and so you
Mhm.
might as well use it to help somebody else." And I think that that's what ultimately helped save me is feeling like I had a purpose beyond my abuser, is
Mhm.
that I needed to take all that stuff that if I let it go internally, it would just eat me alive, and I had to take all that energy and I had to put it out into the world in a positive way and see what I could do with it. So that's, ultimately what ended up happening, and then I just got writing right away, right away. So
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I think there's something very cathartic and therapeutic, right? About documenting trauma and in whatever way works for you. You know, like I make visual art, you know, you're doing writing. I know Diana does a lot of like cool art writing mashup journal work, and she also is working on some writing of her own. Yeah, I do think there is something very valuable to getting it out of your body, right? And like in a
mhm,
very tangible way, like you're putting it on paper, you're putting it into paint, or you're smashing a glass vase against a wall, whatever your thing is, right? But I do think there is value to getting that energy out of your body because you're right. Like if you don't, fuck, it builds up. You know what I mean? It just
mhm,
does. And that's where that kind of delayed disclosure 20 years later, the dragon's tail comes whipping around. And I think for all three of us, like that dragon's tail did come whipping around on all of us. It's just that it looks very different for all three of us how it came back around.
mhm,
And I think that that's what's interesting about your book. Your dragon tail is really different than mine, and it's very, and Diana's is different than mine. And I think it's fascinating. And I know for myself, as I was listening to the audiobook, there were like moments where I was like driving and I was like yelling at my stereo, like, no, girl, no, like, don't do it. Like, and it wasn't like in a judgmental way. It was like in the way that you
mhm,
would say to your girlfriend or the way that you would say to yourself. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
mhm,
I look back at stuff I've done in my life where I'm like, what the fuck was I doing? What was I thinking? Like, and I can have sympathy and empathy for myself in that moment, but I can still look back and be like, the hell, you know? And so I think it
mhm,
was, I also was able to not only bond with the idea of, you know, your story of abuse, but then also not in the exact same way, but like able to also bond with that, like, I am self sabotaging in a really weird way and I am making some choices. And it's really clear to see on the outside, but I also know what it's like when you're on the inside of something like that and you're like, I I feel this thing and I don't wanna feel it anymore, so I'm gonna go do this.
Yep, get
Like,
it.
set my house on fire. Like
It's all survival. It's all like
yeah.
you just can't feel, it's so weird because you try to put yourself back in that mindset now, and thank God I
Mhm.
really can't. Like, now I can see it more from the outside. But yeah, I mean, it's so weird, and I'm glad that you said you had, like, empathy for yourself too while you're going through it because it is hard. You feel like all those things, but logically, I just recently listened to a couple of the audiobook scenes. Just every once in a while, I'll go back because it's
Mhm.
actually very healing for me to hear it in somebody else's voice because I'm able
Mm.
to separate myself from it. And then I'm like you, Sarah, in the car, like, no, stop. No, this guy sucks. This guy sucks. Like, and the thing is, you
Oh
logically
god.
know that. You logically know
Mhm.
this is a
Yep.
piece of trash human being. Like, and
Yeah.
that's the thing is like I my intelligence never went away in any of this. No matter what my brain is recognizing objectively, my body and I'm connected to this person, and I wanna do everything I can to believe. I wanna believe that what if, though, he's telling the truth? But what if,
Mm.
because I was thinking, "But if he doesn't love me? But if he doesn't mean these things? Am I gonna survive it?"
And
Yeah.
it also, if he doesn't mean those things, you also have to admit that you were abused. And I think that's
Uh,
such a survival self-defense mode to be in. And I know that's something that's been projected on me from other people around me where they've said things to me like about our abuser, like, well, he really loved you though. And it's like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah.
that's a
Because what?
horrible thing to say. But it's because they don't want to believe that that happened to me and
Mhm.
what way they might have been complicit in it or the way that they might have missed it. So it makes sense that like you to your own brain, like your brain to you would be like, everything's fine. That's not what happened.
And
We're
you're
going to tiptoe through the tulips.
and you're not
We
doing it on
should,
purpose. Yeah, you're not doing it on
No.
purpose, it's just happening. Sorry, Diana, go
right.
ahead.
We should probably mention that the name of your book is called Dissonance. Megan Farison, you are the author of Dissonance. Oh my God, beautiful writer. It was so hard to not say that to you in our intro meeting.
Oh, thank you.
It was just, I wasn't expecting you to be a good writer because you have this talent, or as good of a writer because you have this talent in like music and like this other thing. So in my mind, I'm like, how can one person, like that's where all her magic is in music. But no, you also are a magical writer. And I wasn't sure what to expect when I first started reading the book. You know, I knew a little bit of your story, but I didn't know your whole story. You know, it starts off kind of how I was expecting, kind of what I think a lot of us go through of this teacher. Then I got along really well and we struck up like this special relationship. And I wrote down in my notes around page 80, like I want her to be more mad at him. Like it just still felt like I was waiting for that twist of like, oh, and then I realized I hate him so much and I'm so mad. And like, I don't feel like that feeling went away for me until probably like 30 pages before the end. Sarah and I are very open and vocal about how we feel about our abuser. I wasn't able to relate to of that feeling of still wanting to see this person as someone who cared for you or who loved you in some way. There's a question here somewhere, but I knew for sure I wanted to say you're a beautiful writer, and I wanted you also just to have some insight as to like why it felt like such a challenge for me to read. But yeah, I think it was a challenge because it was just your experience is just so different
Mhm.
than mine.
It was funny. Diana did text me like 7 times and she's like, she's such an amazing writer. This book is so
Aw,
beautiful. So I
thank
can back that
you.
up. Yeah. And I think, what's interesting is, it brought up conversations for Diana and I, via text because we never really had time to debrief, kind of being like, yeah, I want her to be mad. Like I want her to be angry at him. And then I was like, I don't know though. Is that better? Like, is it better that we are filled with white hot rage and that we like are counting down the days till his death? Like, is that better? Like, I mean, I'm not letting go of it. It's not changing, but like, is one better than the other? And like, it just brings up such interesting questions about trauma and trauma response and recovery. And I mean, I think it's a really good reminder for everybody, including Diana and I, right? That like, we might all share this like similar abuse, but we don't all share these similar like outcomes or recoveries or behaviors, right? What ended up happening with you and the teacher years later where you guys reconnected, in my mind, my initial reaction was like, oh my God, how? And then I immediately was like, but this makes sense in some way to my brain. Like I was like, people who suffer childhood sexual abuse have higher risks of like self-sabotaging, self-harm, addiction, all these things. And in my brain, I was like, this is your alcoholism, right? Like this is your drug addiction. It's just like you are still connecting this person to like risky behavior and dopamine hits and like all of those things. And for me, like reading the way you were interacting with him as an adult, this is a traumatized brain that is like acting like a teenager and behaving in a way that is very like addictive. And I was able to really like understand where you were coming from in that way. Like in my mind, right? Like I was very like, this doesn't make sense logically, but I've also done shit that doesn't make sense logically. I have. I think if you've ever been in a state in your life where you are just like yeah, a few years later, you're like, damn, I fucked some shit up. But like at that moment, that was oxygen to me. That was like the only way I was going to get
Mhm.
through this moment. I would assume it's got to feel like one thing to share that you were abused by your teacher, but I feel like sharing that second half of that story has to almost feel 10 times more vulnerable.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. No, you're absolutely right, and that's why I mean, for years, I thought, "Oh, if I have to wait until the memoir comes out, and then everybody will know
Mhm.
everything." But there was a morning where I woke up, and I and it Ghislaine Maxwell had just been
Mm.
sentenced, and there was all this talk about how she did not receive the recommended sentence, like, they gave her less, or it's like, 20 years, and you're like, "This
Yeah.
woman ruined how many people's lives, and you're gonna
Yeah.
give her 20? She deserves life." And it shows you the difference in weight that our justice system puts on sexual crimes as
Mhm.
opposed to, murder, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because it's like, well, yes, you can take someone's life physically, or you can steal somebody's life while their body is still walking around. You've just
Mhm.
effectively stolen the life they could have had, and they still have to walk around in this body and figure out how to live a life that has joy and meaning. And so I woke up, and that same voice that spoke to me that day that said, "You're gonna write your story," it said, "You're gonna out Chris Blackmer." It
Mhm.
does just like that. And I had no preconceived notions that I would wake up on any given morning and do that, but I thought, "No, I get to decide how much I share, and I'm gonna share part 1, if you will, like the prelude, if you
Mhm.
will, in musical speak." And so I think that that was good because it gave people an opportunity to sit with that information, which was
Yeah.
really hard because he was very well known here in this state. Like, so many people know who he is. And also, I was the first person to come out and say that I was a victim here in
Mm.
Michigan. Nobody else has come out still, which is a
Okay.
very
Oh.
odd thing, right? Because statistically, we know that that's not likely that I was the only one. There's no way, right?
Yeah.
But just telling myself, you only have to, you get to decide how much you share. And knowing that people got to sit with that for a while, for years until the memoir came
Mhm.
out, then going in, they were already sort of ready for part 1, not even realizing what part 2 was going to be. But I think
Yeah.
it helped them to like sit with, that's so messed up what happened, that's so messed up, so that when you get to the next part, you're like, yeah, I can sort of see that, instead of like it coming at you all at once and you having to make sense of all of it and not knowing what to do. And it's like, well, I don't get this at all, which thankfully I've had very few interactions that are like that. I think that the people that feel that way just don't say anything to me. I think that
Mm.
the people that have read it or know what's happened, like, and they judge it, they're judgy about it, they're turned off by it, they maybe distance themselves from me. I think
Mhm.
all of that has been done quietly, and I have felt it in different ways with different people. But overall, it's been such a gift because then you see the people who are really with you because they know
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
about you, and
Mm.
they're like, "We love you." And some people have said, "I have even more respect for you now than I did before, and I have even more respect for your husband than I did before." Like, I mean,
Mhm.
even more, like, so to have that amplify the love and respect as opposed to shrink it is
Mhm.
such a special gift, to get to see who's really there for you when the shit goes down. And to say, "I know that you're still you." And it was hard for some
Mhm.
people. I had a former high school student who read the book like the first night it came out. And she wanted to come over to my house almost immediately because she was like, and she was out of high school at this point. She's like an
Mhm.
adult and she's doing her own thing. But she said, "I just needed to see you and see that you were the same person that I know,"
Wow.
because when she was reading it, it was like, "Who am I reading about?" And
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
to be fair, when you're reading about your teacher, it's not like I talked to her about my personal life. So she was getting a
Yeah.
lot of stuff, which is good. Like,
Yeah.
yay, that's what kind of educators we want to be. Something I wanted to say, Sarah, earlier about when you were saying, how did this happen? Or talking about how you, even though it wasn't your experience, you could put yourself in my shoes of that, right?
Mhm.
Is I think the thing with you two, because you might think that it's easier to just do a clean like cutoff, right? You just rip the Band-Aid off and you're done with that person. But the difference I think between me and you two is that you got to see it through long enough. And to be fair, actually, I am like this too. It's just you figured it out in the process that you stayed with
Mhm.
this person long enough. You were around them long enough. You had
Mhm.
enough new data coming in that you were like, God,
Mhm.
this guy sucks. God, this guy sucks. Like, and so eventually it just wears you down and eventually you're just done with it, right? You're just done.
We did talk about that at one point. Now I feel like we did debrief Diana just via text message apparently, because I think I think we did say something like that where I was like, well, think about the fact. I was like, think about like our abuser. If I had only had the 3 months of abuse that happened when I was in high school, right? And then I graduated high school and I went to college and I was away from him. And I hadn't been coming back on the weekends and seeing him. And I hadn't spent Christmas break at his apartment and got snowed in. And he was the most annoying human being to be around for 4 days straight. I got so fucking annoyed. Like, if I had then been able to tell myself there was this kind of star-crossed lover, we are separated, and he was just kind of coming in and out of my life over and over and over, I was like, it would be really easy to continue to think this person is all the things that I thought he was that senior year of high school. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because like we did talk specifically about that because our experiences, and Diana, I mean, you were with the teacher for how many? 9?
About nine
9
years.
years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
You had
yeah.
a lot of time to figure out how much he sucked. Like you had a lot of time to be like,
Yeah, and so when he was out of my life, I like did not want to like be friends with him. And full disclosure, I don't know how to be friends with my exes. I don't have a lot of exes to begin with. And so the idea too of I think how I was trying to relate to your story, Megan, is I was like, okay, I have friends and I've known of situations where maybe there's someone from like middle school or high school or your early 20s that you had a crush on, but like it didn't really go anywhere. But it's always kind of like this will we, won't we kind of thing in our heads kind of situation, which is one thing. But in your situation, it wasn't, you weren't peers, it wasn't just like a crush, it was abuse that was happening. But
Mhm.
it didn't seem like you like there wasn't a like one event that kind of like severed that tie, and so it was still kind of like a will they won't they for you, and without fully understanding like that it was grooming and abuse and manipulation and all these other things, I could understand why, yeah, it would be easy to kind of fall into being swept away and like the romance of being star-crossed lovers or whatever. So,
well, and it's really, really weird because I'm gonna say some things that I have not said publicly at all. Like, so I'm gonna start to open up about some things, and then maybe later we'll decide if we keep it or not. Okay, but there,
yes, you can
That's
always
fair.
let us know like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I thought about
We
it and
say
I don't
shit
want
on
you
here.
to."
We say shit on here and it does not go on air, let me tell you.
well,
Just
good.
yeah, make a
So
note, let us know.
I'm gonna feel it out, right? I'm gonna feel it
Sure.
out. So, what is really weird about the trauma of this is that, and I think you do see it in the book, like when you see it and we're in 2007, right? Toward the end of the relationship or whatever, right? Where,
Mhm.
where I was visiting him and I'm in college and things like that. You can see that my interest is waning. My interest
Mhm.
in him is waning. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm feeling like this is a little awkward, right? I mean,
Mhm.
and so at the time it was happening, I could feel all of those things. I mean, when I went to the Billy Joel concert, I was like, this is so weird. This is so awkward. I could feel how weird it was. And I remember, so this is one of the things I'm going to say is that, and I don't, my husband says it's super weird, but there has to be someone else out there that has this thing. Okay. But growing up, how I knew that I had like my interest in someone was waning is that when I would kiss them, they would taste different to me.
Oh, dude, 100%. Yes, my thing is smell though.
Oh, smell.
When I'm done, the guy suddenly smells like a butt. Like I like literally, it's like a pheromone thing. I think it's like a pheromone thing. Like your body is like, this is not the mate for you.
Yes.
So I don't have the taste thing, but I have this smell thing. 100% the smell
Okay,
thing.
good. I'm so glad. I don't know, but I just remember the first time he kissed me after so many years, and I thought, he tastes a little bit different to me. This tastes different. What is this? What is this? And so that's how my body started to recognize that I think I was like, I could feel the awkwardness, but when the trauma happened in 2019, I suddenly couldn't remember any of it. Like I logically could try to tell myself, you did start feeling like when I would be in bed and you would start kissing me. There was a point when I could feel my body closing up as opposed to being open. And certainly toward the end, because I mean, I walked away with him with no problem whatsoever. When I knew I was in love with my husband, that was it for me. Like with my, boyfriend, now husband, it was like, I didn't care that I was like, bye. And it didn't matter. But then when the trauma happened, all of a sudden it warped those memories and it reshaped them. It's like it melted everything down and remolded it like into something new. So I would think about the Billy Joel concert and I would feel guilty. I would be like wanting to go back and do things differently, even though I knew at the moment I made the exact choice I wanted to make. That was the right choice for me. And I was so certain of it. But then when this all went down and then it was PTSD that really like manifested as feelings of love and affection and loyalty. I could not tap into that anymore. And only now, I just want to be very real, that only now, like I would say the back half of 25 and the start of this year, I'm able to tap into more anger. I am able to look back and remember what it was like to wake up and look at the backside of his head and be like, I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean is I can start to feel it again. But it took me, I mean, it's been 6 years. It's taken me that long to do it. So for any listeners out there that think, is this ever going to go away? Like, I think that it can and it will, but you do have to put in the work. You have to really face it. You can't just, if I wasn't willing to face it full on, I would have never made it this far. Never. And so I just want to acknowledge that there's both the piece of like, yeah, I didn't have the new data of he sucks, he sucks, he sucks. But then also I had the trauma of having no idea he was an abuser, no idea he was a terrible person, and walking away believing that he had actually loved me and having all of that crash down. Like it was like the weight of all those years crashing down on me at one time. And then all my body wanted, all my brain wanted was to be like, he loved you. He loved you. He loved you. And I love him and I love him. I mean, it was just, I didn't ask for that. It was like a prison. It was like an emotional prison. So I hope that, that makes sense. And that's what I think, right, is different about ours, is because you sort of went through those stages of like figuring it out in that moment, and you never had to return to it in a like, well, and the tail whipping around the dragon's tail. I love that like imagery of that. So it was different.
Sarah's just a genius with words.
Oh, it's very, very
Not
good.
True. I guess my other question for you would be, Diana and I talk so much in season 1 about like our aha moments, right? Like that moment where the gear shifted, the veil lifted, whatever the hell you want to call it. And we were really not only able to see, him for our abuser for what he was, what he did to us, but really finally being able to not see ourselves as complicit in that abuse. Right. And so I'm curious for you, like, did you ever have like a big download moment, or was that moment just like when your husband handed you the newspaper or the link, right? And was like, this person that you thought you had this relationship with got busted with a kid. Was that like the closest you had to like a big moment? Was the realization that you weren't really giving consent in that relationship like a big moment for you, or did that come gradually? Have you had that moment yet? Are you still grappling with this? Like,
That's fair. That's fair.
Can I
no,
add
I
to
mean,
all these
really,
other
like,
questions that
Yeah.
Sarah just
Yes.
answered
Yes.
similarly, like on that note? So I think there's more victims of grooming and sexual abuse, of educator sexual misconduct that are out there who haven't had that aha moment either,
mhm,
because they still see their abuser as like someone who cared about them or someone who helped
mhm,
awaken something in them, or like whatever narrative they're telling themselves. It didn't end in that event, like that one thing that like, oh, that guy all that data, right? They didn't have all the information to know that guy sucks. So like in their mind, they're still like, oh, he treated me like an adult or whatever. And I think that there's probably based off, I don't know, but I feel like there's more people out there who maybe have not had their aha moment because they're still somehow in it. Like, also
mhm,
curious to know, like, when that download did come for you, Megan, and like when you really saw the situation for what it was in this period where there was still some kind of affection towards your abuser. And correct me if affection is not the right word to use.
No, it's absolutely the right word. And I do want to apologize to you both because I had forgotten that you do describe yours as like an aha moment. So I just don't want to feel like I didn't want to sound like or have it come off as a like I'm invalidating that you did. And I'm remembering back to some of those. I think I was just trying to express that you had like gradual information building up
mhm.
to this and you were already over him, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Is that fair to
Oh, for
say?
sure.
Like
Yeah,
you were
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
you
we're
had
good.
outlived,
yeah.
right?
We're fine.
So okay, so Diana, so back to what you're saying about the okay, so the aha moment, right? So I this is tough. So first off, affection is not the wrong word because that's very even today. And I feel like there is no benefit to lying about this. That
Mhm,
even today, I still have to keep myself in check. I still it's not like it's zero gone if you're on a sliding scale, like
mhm,
100% zero. There's a part of me that is still that 16-year-old that whatever is like still in there. It's just that she also knows better too. And,
sure.
so I don't wish anything necessarily I don't wish bad on him, but I also don't care, you know? I
Mm,
mean, and I don't wanna say, like, if he died, I wouldn't care. I think that that would be tough in a different way or anything like that, but I'm just saying I used to feel like if he died in prison, I'm gonna be so devastated if something happens to him. I was
mm,
so still deep and in that way. So, when I saw the arrest article, I mean, I describe it in the book. I was convulsing and I mean, I had a full on traumatic episode. And when it was over, when my body had sort of like just like purged all of this, just crying and shaking, and I just felt so empty. And I felt like he died and I mean, it was so weird. I never cared if I was gonna see him again, and then I see this article, and I feel like I've just lost the most important person in the world to me. Like, I had had other people
mm,
in my family die. I knew what being sad was, but I felt like this was the first time I understood what grief felt like.
mm,
Because as soon as I saw that and I couldn't my brain was like this, I went into a state of mourning. I went into a state of grieving, and I think that anyone can understand that when you lose something, like a person or an animal, like your favorite animal,
mhm,
like, all you want is to be able to spend one more day with them. All you
mhm,
want is just for them to walk through the door so you can just see them one more time. And that's what I felt like with him, and it was really hard because he was still alive. Like,
mm.
he wasn't dead dead. My idea of him was dead.
Yeah.
Where is that guy? He died, but this person that looks like him is still walking around. Well, maybe he's still in there. Well, maybe that's still him. So even though I had all the information that pointed to the fact that I was a victim, I mean, I was sitting with the sheriff and it's like, well, you were raped. Like, I mean, I
Mhm,
had all this logical information. I could not believe that that was true. Like, maybe on paper it said that, right? But in my brain, I couldn't believe it. My body was like, no, and that it needed it needed the other reality. And it didn't matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get to that. So for
Mm.
years, I mean, it took me years to even be able to say to myself, he raped you. You were raped. But it wouldn't reach my body. But I could at least say it enough. Okay, I can say this. I can say this. At least I could logic my way out of being in danger, or logic my way out of calling him or trying to contact him. Or, I mean, there was one night years ago when I was lying in bed just crying myself to sleep and trying to come up with some plan for how I could create a P.O. box where we could communicate without anybody knowing. That's how like messed up.
But that's like addict behavior.
Oh,
Behavior, right?
totally. Like one more hit, one more
Yep.
hit, one more thing. And I it's only in the past year that I think my body that I can really feel it aligning. I can really like I can say to myself now, I know that I meant nothing to him. Because a person that really cares about you, because love doesn't look like this. Care doesn't look like this. Everything he did for him. He didn't do anything for me.
Also, he was so like blasé. Like, I don't know if that's the right word, but I feel like I was reading it and he was just so like, yeah, sure, if you want to come visit me and like have sex with me and ruin your life, you can do that or not. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah.
Like, I feel like that was so interesting because I feel like our abuser was like just such a little bitch and like just such a like like he was so dramatic and so like manipulative and so like me and like needy and just like yucky. I mean, Diana, you were with him longer than I was, but that's what I remember him as.
You are doing a perfect job describing him, yeah.
Thank you. And he thought he was like God's gift. He was just the fucking worst. If he's listening, go eat a sack of shit. Anyways, and so it was interesting to listen to your story and hear that your abuser was just so like aloof.
It's like
that's
whatever.
So fucking aloof. Yes.
Yeah. Which made it more painful. Also, it made it more painful. Because it's like
that's also the most enticing shit in the world to a teenage girl. Is the guy that's like couldn't fucking care.
Emotionally unavailable. Like, I'm gonna prove it. I'm gonna prove it. It's like he was sort of, I think of it like a person that walks by the staff room, like at a workplace, and they see a piece of cake on the table from somebody's birthday, and they're like, I could do without it. Like, I could take the piece of cake. It'll be fine or not. But that's what I feel like. I feel like I'm the workroom cake. And like he was just, and for me, I needed, like, I was so desperate and he knew it. He knew it. Yeah. And the more he played that he didn't care, the more he knew I would lean in. And then I think the saddest part about that is that if I didn't actually ever reach out, he would just go, okay, I'll move on to who else I can. And that took me the longest time to be able to accept that without feeling like I was going to cry. Is that, I didn't mean anything, but that doesn't mean that I don't mean anything.
Sure.
You know?
It's like you didn't mean anything to a piece of shit. So does that matter?
Right.
You know, kind of like you're saying with people in your life, like if they read this book and they get on their high horse and they're judgy and they think you're this, that, and the other, well, fuck them. Those aren't people you necessarily wanted in your life anyways.
Nope. I was going to lose them at some point. Like if I, at this point, and this is one of the gifts that this has given me. And I hope that you two can feel this way too, since doing your podcast and coming out and talking about this, is there just is a real gift in just getting rid of all of the shit in your life and all the inauthenticity and saying, I only want what's real now. I'm not going to deal with this. And I don't care if you're family. I'm done with this. Like, I'm done with this shit. Like, and if you can't take accountability for yourself, if you don't think, if we can only get along, if I stay in this box, in this role that you see me as, and if I step out of it, you're no longer interested in me. Well, that was always going to happen at some point. So let's get it over with now and pull the Band-Aid off. And I think that that's a gift because I just, I'm the same person, but I have so much more. I'm so much more equipped to read when situations are dangerous. I mean, and I think that's a gift. Like, and I still trust people. I will trust you until I have a reason not to. I think it's just that I'm able to more quickly recognize when I'm not able to trust you.
Going back to the idea of just one more hit. It was maybe after the second time that you texted him again, that like you were like, "I'm not gonna do it," and then you texted him again, "I'm not gonna do it," and texted him again. And then it just doesn't stop. Then you just like keep going back and texting him and keep going back and texting him. And the desperation of like wanting his response almost to be something
Mhm.
different. When Ian in the book, his name's Ian, when your husband, when you start being honest with him about like, I can't stop myself, I can't control myself. I really had to like take breaks in those moments, because to just witness what to me felt like true love. Two people who decided, we're going to make this work. Like, we are going to make this work. I'm going to help you. I felt so like my heart broke for Ian so many times. And there were times where I was so mad at you, Megan. and but
It's fair. That's
at the
fair.
end of the day, like after reading through it, and I don't want to say, "Oh, this is also a love story," because I feel like that just discredits like your personal experience, but there is so much love that seeps through that I appreciate your vulnerability as a reader, that you included so many of those details, and that you have a partner in life who, when you said, "I think I'm gonna write a book," didn't quiver, didn't say, "Oh no, you're gonna expose us." He was like,
Mhm.
"Duh, I knew you were gonna write a book before you did," So, I just wanna give a nod to that part of the story, because it is fucking hard to, like, get through and to see you, like, keep going back, and because it defies logic, and you wanna be like, "Oh, this is an adult woman, she should know better, blah, 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 blah," but then it also and that's me, like, coming as a survivor of grooming, like, having that just, like, gut reaction, but, like, when you really stop and look at it, it's a what you're going through is such a great depiction of, like, how complicated and
Mhm.
often, but, like, insidious grooming really is to your mind and your body. So, again, no question, just lots of comments.
No, I
Diana.
This is how we do the podcast.
I love it. I know I love hearing your thoughts about it and your honesty because again, your experience was different than mine, both of you. And so I sure you were angry. Like and you sort of in a way maybe felt like I've got this shit figured out. Why don't you have this shit figured out, Megan? Like I mean, it's
I
who kn-
don't,
I mean
just to make it clear.
Diana's like, "Listen, I don't think I've got anything figured out beyond anyone else."
I hear the anger, and I've had a lot of people say that to me, but be able to say it with love. And again, how many people get the gift of having someone say, I was so mad at you. I was so mad at you when you were doing these things. But I also said to myself, I get why this is happening. I
Mhm.
understand to take the time instead of just going, well, I'm pissed at her and I'm mad. And now I don't want anything to do with her and I'm done with her. I like because
Mhm.
it really is hard, and it's tough, I can understand, even for me to look back on it. I tell Dan. Do you know what's funny as a side note? I had no idea that when I picked the name Ian, it was 1 letter off from his actual name. I just like the name Ian.
I thought that's why it was like that, because I know
That's
his name's
hilarious. You're
Dan.
like, "No one will ever figure it out."
No, I literally okay, there was 2 parts going into this. One of them was that I didn't wanna have a name that had the same syllables as Chris. I didn't because
Mm,
Chris is a one-syllable name, so I wanted my husband's name to be a two-syllable, just because so the feel of
Mm,
it was different to hear.
sure.
And
yeah,
so there
yeah.
was something just one day Ian latched on, and I thought, "What a nice name." And I swear to you, it was last year that Dan said to me, "Well, you do know it's like 1 letter off of my name," and I was like, "Bullshit." Like, I did not even put those 2 things together, okay? So, it's so hard to explain, yet at the same time, I think people can also relate to, like, okay, for this person, for this man, this woman, whatever, right, that I am so attached to, I would throw myself off a cliff and I would just hit every jagged like rock on the way down and I will do it for this person who wouldn't do anything like that for me. Like I don't it's really
Mm,
hard to explain that you're like I will sacrifice myself on the altar of this person or I do have to say something about Stockholm syndrome is there is a role reversal thing that happens that I think, the person that's in power who's caring for you, they build that relationship of being the one that's caring for you. But then you notice in so many stories where the person in power starts to share something vulnerable with the
Mm-hmm.
victim and then
Mm,
or the target, and then the target goes, "Oh, I'll take care of you. Oh, I'll
mm,
care for you. Oh, you're having trouble with your spouse? Oh, she's not being good to you? I'll be good to you. I'll be what your spouse can." And so like it's this
mhm,
weird, I almost felt like I was responsible for him.
mm,
I was meant to sacrifice myself to him. It is really effed up. Like when it comes down to it, I mean that's why it is so bad. And I think of grooming as a form of suppression.
mm,
Or excuse me, it is suppression, but oppression. I look at it as
mm,
a form of oppression because it is literally stopping you from living, from be able to make your own, like have your own agency and make the choices that you would make without the influence of this person in your life. So like, because the name of the game is control, right?
yeah,
So that's what the whole game is like, how do I keep control of this person? And they don't care if that means that they're stealing your agency or your choice.
mm.
And I'm sorry, I gotta quickly go out. This is something I haven't gotten to talk about yet, but talking about choice, all right? Like I wanna talk about this because I grew up and I can assume that you maybe did as well hearing because you're both younger than I am. But hearing that like, well, you're always in control of your choices. Well,
Mm,
you can't help what happens to you, but you can always choose how you respond. And that is bullshit. That's not true. I think choice is a sliding scale. It's sort of like, when you're free of trauma, when you're free of this, it's easy to see the path to the choice you want to make. But when you
mhm,
add in trauma and you add in all this other stuff, you're number 1 not seeing the world clearly, but it's not as easy as this is right and this is wrong. Like it's I talk about before I go to Florida that there is no one true my compass, there is no one true north. There's nowhere it's pointing that says this is the right way. Like I have so much more empathy for people, but in the end, it's not black and white. Like in the end, a person who has a substance abuse disorder, right?
mhm,
Some of it is choice. What they're able somewhere in there is like this some of their agency that's left and they have to dig, dig, dig really hard to get to it. And it doesn't sometimes they can't overcome it, right? Like
mhm,
it but it's not as simple as, "Well, just do the right thing. Well, stop hurting yourself. Well, stop hurting your family." So I just people are able to have more choice, like ability to choose in a sober way and have agency when they don't have to deal with trauma and generational stuff and all this and poverty and
mhm.
name all these other things that get in the way. So I just think the idea of just, well, you're always in control of your choices. I don't feel that I was. I feel like I look back and I'm a person who will take accountability. Like I can say to you right now, I know why I did what I did, but it's still wrong. It still hurt people. I can do both of those things.
It's interesting because I think the way that some people would maybe react to the, you know, part 2 of your story, right? The second half of your story where you reconnected with Chris as an adult, um, very much in the same way that people react to stories of teenage kids being groomed, right? Like, "Well, why did you say yes? Why did you do this? You knew better." Like, victim blaming, and I think that's part of why I was able to, like, hold space for that second part because my initial instinct was kind of kicking on those things and I was like, "What the fuck am I thinking?" Like I'm thinking the exact same things that like
Yeah.
people have said to us, right? Which is like, well, no shit, dude. Like this person's been manipulated and this person has been controlled and this person has been lied to and groomed. And it's kind of like being in a one person cult where there's
Mhm.
no other followers but you. And what a bizarre experience. Because at least if you've been in a cult, there's other fucking people that were in it with you that like can understand that experience. But I think about that a lot too. Like I watch documentaries about people being in cults, and some of them are able to sit there and go, "This guy is a piece of shit. This guy is a monster. I lost 10 years of my life." And then there's people that are sitting there still wearing their red outfit and crying that the community fell apart. And it's so easy to sit there and be like, look at these people. Look at the, they're crazy. And it's like, no, these people have complex PTSD, dude. Like these people are suffering serious emotional damage from being manipulated by somebody and controlled by somebody for years. And I think as a society, we have so much more understanding for certain kinds of addiction and certain kinds of, a trauma than we do of others. And I think especially when you're talking about sex abuse and you're talking about sexual trauma, it's something that makes people uncomfortable. They don't like to talk about it. They don't like to hear about it. Yeah,
and they
so
do
I don't know.
Like this age of like, oh, at this age that you had all the control about your sex life, and
which is also like, have you met yourselves? Like, I don't know. I also think this is the beauty of getting older, right? Is like I don't have a whole lot of high horses left. You know what I mean? I got a few high horses about a couple of things, but like you live a while and you kind of you start to realize the world is not black and white and there is so much gray. There's so much gray. And sometimes you're the asshole and sometimes you're the hero and sometimes you're the victim and sometimes you're the bad, you're the abuser in one which situation or another to somebody or something. And I think that's what I appreciate about your story is that, you allowed yourself to take up space as all of those things, right? Like you were like, I was the victim, but I also hurt my family, right? Like, and I was suffering, but I also made others suffer. And I really appreciated that because I think even if you haven't been groomed or even if you have been groomed and you didn't get back together or hook up or start communicating again with your abuser, were you self-harming in some other way that did impact the others around you? And how do you hold all of that at the same time? I think is nice to kind of see it depicted because, I think Diana and I try to talk about it as much on the pod, but just like, it is not as easy as like, then I figured out he's a piece of shit. And then I called the police and they arrested him and everything was great. And it did not fuck up my personal life for 2 years at all. Like, it's like, no, it did. Like, all in different ways, but yeah, like, it severely impacts your life. Like when you really start processing this kind of stuff and impacts your ability to work, your sexual relationship, your romantic relationships, your family relationships, your friends, like it really is a ripple that goes through your entire world. And I don't know, I think it's just interesting to see that part kind of depicted because I think a lot of the books that we've read, it's more about like the abuse and kind of the living in the moment and not as much about the other side of it or the repercussions of it, which is really important for people to understand because also there's assholes in the world that are very like, that was 20 years ago, who cares? Or it was only a few months, who cares? And it's like, as you said, Megan, like it's the rest of your life.
Right. Meanwhile, the person is an asshole because of something happened when they were, or whatever, like the reason.
Yeah. Like they don't have empathy because their dad threw a toaster at their head. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it is. And there are all these different types of love, right? I mean, there's friendship love, there's romantic love, there's like parental love. And now imagine a person taking hold of all of them at the same time. How do you separate that?
Yeah.
There were elements of your story. And I think you gave the book My Dark Vanessa some credit at the end of the acknowledgments, but even before I read that, I found myself kind of thinking like, oh, there's elements from My Dark Vanessa that kind of remind me of what I'm reading here in Megan's story. And I think one of those was like kind of having another teacher walk in on you and the teacher, just like not doing anything, but just kind of like being alone or being close or something. And then one of the other reasons why it reminded me of My Dark Vanessa was, the idea of like maintaining contact, not in like a serious, like you were my boyfriend, we're together kind of way, but like maintaining some kind of thread over a long period of time. And, like in My Dark Vanessa, she's I forgot the main character's name, but she's Vanessa. Oh my god.
Jesus
Um,
Christ, Diana.
I'm sorry. I'm
I think her
sorry.
name
This-
was
There is a
Tiffany.
reason. I just love you so much. I just love you so much. That is.
Thank you.
Oh my God. No, listen, if you want to feel better, my husband, or not my husband, my son showed me a picture the other day of a penguin that was dead in the mountains. And I said, "Oh, did the penguin freeze to death?" And he looked at me and I was like, "I mean, it's a penguin, but yeah, so please don't feel bad.
Thank you for
Please
that.
don't feel bad."
But yes, reading your book, reading Dissonance, made me want to go back and
Mm.
read My Dark Vanessa, because I do remember walking away from that book feeling like I didn't like it. And part of it was because I was very frustrated with Vanessa. I think when you can see elements of yourself in the character, like
Mm.
Vanessa's alcohol abuse reminded me a lot of like my alcohol abuse. There was things that I could see myself in her, and I think that was definitely part of like why it was hard for me to digest her as a character.
She
Yeah,
upset me too, by the way. I just want to say, she really ticked me off a lot of times. And
but it's not she can't it's not her fault. Like, it's not
no,
her fault, you know?
no,
And
it's
that's
not. But so in that way, it
Yeah.
does help, right? It does help because you're like, oh yeah, I have to self reflect on that. You know?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yes,
But that's because
exactly.
that's also
So,
what we
yeah.
do to ourselves, though, right? Like that's part of healing as a survivor. Also, is that like it is so easy to be mad at yourself and
Hmm.
look back and go, God, I was so stupid. I can't believe I fell for that, or I can't believe I did this, or I knew better. I coulda, woulda, what all that. And so I think that's partially what reading these books. I think that discomfort is good because I think you're hitting a sticky spot somewhere
Hmm.
Mhm.
in your own body about yourself and like how you did or did not handle some part of your abuse, because I think that is so often kind of projected on kids that are groomed, like I said in a recent recording, I was talking to a friend and, just kind of being like, talk to your kid about boundaries and talk to your kid about, adults and blah, 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 whatever. Grooming had kind of come up. And my friend said, like, oh, well, that would never happen to my daughter. She's smarter than that. And I was like, so are you saying that I'm dumb? And you could tell she was like, oh shit. And she was like, no,
Hmm.
she would never do that. And I'm like, but I would have. Stop. Think about what you're saying right now.
Right.
Right.
And
And
she said
so
she would never do that. She wouldn't
yes.
Right.
And
Like, it
also,
would
what
be
a
her
thing to
choice.
project.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like she would make that decision. I was like, what a burden to put on a young girl that is up to her to like understand grooming and how complicated it is. Like for a young girl, like that's too much for like a little kiddo to like really hold on to themselves. I think it's important and interesting that parts of these books are sticky for us and like hard, because I think
Yeah.
that usually means that it's kind of like getting a massage, you hit a
Yeah.
tender spot and it's like, gotta wail on it.
Go deeper.
Yeah.
Yes.
It goes beyond. We keep talking about, like, we'll use the word sex. So I'm going to talk about my best friend Katie. She's an amazing person, and she has helped me reframe certain things. And I don't always agree. Like I'll want to like mentally push back, but I get why she's saying it, and it's very
Mhm.
helpful. So if I use the word sex, she'll say to me, "That wasn't sex." She'll be like, "That was rape." Like, sex is when two people come together, and I get, right? Like, we can get into labels
Mhm.
of, well, sexual intercourse, like, yeah, if you're looking at medically,
Sure.
whatever. But I think that words have emotions attached to them. And so whenever we
Mhm.
use, it's the same reason why I just saw an article online that said teacher had a sex marathon with a kid or whatever. And I was like, yeah,
Ew.
Jesus
I
Christ.
just
What
saw
the
that. Yeah, it was so gross. And a lot of people in the comments were like, that wasn't sex, that was rape. That was rape. Why are you saying that?
Yeah.
And also
Good.
the
I'm glad it's getting
grossness of
called
calling
out.
it a sex marathon. Oh my
Marathon?
Yeah.
God. I said, as a victim of this exact type of abuse, this is really bad. This is really insulting. That wasn't a sex marathon. That's serial rape. Let's call it what it
Yeah.
is. And so we have to talk about like, yeah, grooming and abuse and trauma bonds can look like love, and they can, I mean, at what point do we draw the line and say this is love
Mhm.
or it isn't? It's really hard. But it does help when you even know you have the option to reframe it a different way. And I think that's what I really appreciate about it is she gave me she gives me options, like, you don't have to think about it this way.
Yeah.
The first one she would give me was, I was saying affair. Oh, I had an
Mm.
affair. She's like,
I used to say that. I used to say, "I had an affair
Mm.
with my high school English teacher."
oh,
I used to say that all the time before I,
mhm.
like, processed what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
these words like sex and healing are words we're gonna actually talk about in our next terminology part 2 episode.
ooh,
So
Ooh.
yeah, thanks for contributing to the conversation unknowingly.
thank you.
The words we use really do matter. Yeah. As I was listening to season 1, hearing myself use the word sex to describe what happened, I, like, was shouting to no one, like, "It's rape! It's rape! Why am I not just saying rape?" So, that's something that, yeah, we took something to work on, but yeah.
I don't know that I've ever actually said it. Like, I think my therapist has said it to me, because I think I was saying something, how we also talk a lot about, like, comparative trauma, right? Like, "Oh,
Mhm,
well, it's not that bad because I didn't get, like, beaten and drug into a tent in the woods and get held captive," right? Like, "Oh, it's not that bad because," right? Which is what we all do to minimize what happens to us. And also, I think in a way to try to have empathy for other people, because you're trying to, like, acknowledge that somebody may have gone through something that's more extreme than you, right?
mhm.
But it's also very minimizing to your own experience and really unnecessary. But I remember saying something like one day when I was in therapy, and I was like, "Well, it's not like I've ever been raped." And she was like, "Mm, but you have." And I was like, "Ew." And I was like, "I don't like that." And she was like, "I know you don't, buddy." And it was just kind of like, "Ah, shit." As much healing as you do, as much work as you do, like, we're all in so many different pages, and there is no right or wrong way to, like, process this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And there's certain aspects of it that, like, Diana's probably doing a better job in than I am, and I'm doing a better job than Diana is, and you're doing a better job than either, like, whatever. And so I think that that's what's really interesting about connecting with other survivors, is kind of just seeing how everybody is navigating these treacherous fucking
Yeah.
waters, that there's no owner's manual of, like, "So you've been groomed by your teacher. Here is the 200-page document that'll help you get to the other side."
I
Like,
wonder what
But there is
font.
a Facebook group
there is a Facebook group.
that you could talk about,
That's
Megan.
right.
Sorry, but the font.
Yeah, no, it's just when she was like, "And I was like, "I wonder what font that would be, like, if it was written on the
Mm.
book in that voice, what would the character,
Mhm.
what would it
Oh,
be?"
Sarah's got such fun voices. We are winding down so that this isn't a 3-hour episode, but could you talk a little bit about the Facebook group, why you started it, where it came from, where could people find it if you want our listeners to find it?
It's weird to me that I went so many years without meeting another person that had my experience. I had known some people who had toxic situations and abusive situations with teachers, but I
Mhm.
think something that I felt like with a band director or a music, like something that I felt like really reflected what was going
Mhm.
on. And if I felt so alone, and it sort of continued to perpetuate the idea that well, maybe I was, though, special, and maybe he is pining after me right now,
Mm.
and maybe he does
Oh,
love
okay.
me. And because again, that's where your brain wants to go to protect itself. But at the same
Well,
time,
because that's what
it's
they tell
killing
you.
you. Yes. And he was so blase that he never even said he loved me. I mean, that's the thing, is that dude didn't even try that hard. Honestly, he
Mm.
put in all the work up front, and then
Yeah.
once he had me, he barely
You were
had to put in,
hooked.
I was hooked. He barely
Mhm.
had to put in
Yeah.
anything. He didn't have to try very hard. Anyway, I just felt like I'm still really struggling with all of that. And then I ended up finding somebody, and to protect privacy, I'll just say it that way, but actually through my husband, which is awesome. He ended up attending a presentation, and he said, "I think you should connect with these people." And so I did, and ended up finding somebody that for the first time I felt like I can say anything to this person and they're
Mm.
not going to judge me. And that is so important. Like, I'm going to
Mm.
share with you the worst. I'm going to tell you what happened in this room. Like, and this is before, the book came out. So, like, I was still
Mm.
debating, how far am I going to go in the storytelling? Am I going to show what happened in that bedroom? Am I gonna show
Yeah.
what happened in Florida? Which ultimately I decided to do because I didn't want people thinking that it was some magical, like I wanted people to know it was devastating and humiliating and horrible, and that's
Mhm.
what the truth of it was, like, so I had to show it. I could say that to her, and it was so healing because just like you were saying, like, Sarah, about, well, you're ahead on some things and I'm ahead on some things. When you get to hear somebody else say these words back to you and you're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, that's what it sounds like is on the outside hearing that." It is so healing, but you also can hold it with love. You're like, "I get it." And also it's so healing to hear you say it, 'cause it just helps you to make sense of like, "Oh, I really wasn't special." And as scary as that feels to say, like, you don't want that to be true, there's
Mhm.
freedom on the other side of that. The more people that you come into contact with and you realize that you're a statistic, I know that sounds so cold to say it that way, but there is something freeing to know that you're a part of a community that of people where this thing has happened and you feel similar things. You all have gone through
Mhm.
similar experiences and and then you can make sense of it. So, I just was like, where is there a group for this? Because I knew that Sesame existed, which is now the
Mhm.
National Center of Teacher,
Sesame.
yes, yeah, Sesame, whatever. And so there were stories on there, and I thought that was great, but where can I go to talk to other people and
Mhm.
say when I'm having a hard day? And so I thought, well, I'll just start my own, and we'll just see, and even if, I find 3 people that every soul matters, every person matters, and that's how I feel about when people read the book. Every person that reads it, it matters to me because that's a human being that can connect
Mhm.
with it. So on Facebook, I decided to create, and it had a different name, and now it's Survivors of Teacher Educator Abuse, Trauma, and Exploitation. I believe I'm saying that correct. But if you get even some of those words, I think you're going to find it. It is searchable. It is searchable. And it has been so beautiful to connect with these other people, not just one gender that has
Mhm.
experienced this, but to listen to these stories and to watch people help each other, people that are experiencing the same stuff, giving each other advice and trying to help each other through it. And
Mhm.
by doing that, you're saying those things to yourself too. I just love the community. So, and I feel like right now it's still at a number 2 where it feels like we still know each other. Like there are
Mm.
people that don't really interact in the group, and that's okay. They're there for whatever, reason to read or like just to be connected. But there is a core group of people. They comment, they post, and to watch their growth is so it's magical to watch, and it gives you hope. It gives you hope that this isn't the end of your story. It gives you hope that there
Mhm.
is life and hope and joy beyond this. And it gives me purpose in that I keep working to heal so that when I go up a level of healing and I can feel it when it happens. I don't know if you can, but you can sort of feel like, "Oh, I've unlocked a new level like of healing." Level unlocked. And so, but once you do that, then you can share how you got there with the
Mhm.
people who are here still and need to know how to get to this next level. And so for me, my healing isn't just about me. I'm healing so that I can teach other people how to do it as well. And that helps keep me grounded and keep my purpose forward facing as opposed to sliding backward, which is really important because I don't know if you know this. I think I might have told you this, but he's in this state now.
Oh God.
Yeah. And I never thought I would have to live in the same state as him again. So I'm really glad I put all that work in and I did all the things that I
Mm.
did because it was like preparing for war. It was like preparing for
Yeah.
battle for the
Yeah.
day that this would happen. And thankfully, as hard as it was to sort of like grasp the fact that he's here, and I've also accepted this was another sad thing, but a freeing thing that I don't think he will ever reach out to me
Mm.
because I don't matter to him. And
Yeah.
where that used to devastate me or the idea of that possibility used to devastate me, now it's like, but I feel free now to to not be tethered to him, to not be imprisoned to him. And so I really want anybody listening out there to realize that as scary as it is to face that truth, that's short-term pain. Because let's be honest, I mean, and you can correct me, but do you know a single story where one of these abusers was like, oh, I saw the light and I'm so sorry for my actions and I really did care. And because I got to tell you, I know a lot of stories and I can't name a single one like that, because people that do that stuff in the first place, that did that to us, have to feel shame first to even want to change.
Oh, yeah. We talk about that a lot, like with our abuser, just like, what do you think he tells himself? What story do you think he says to himself in the mirror to like get through the day? Because is he just lying to everyone else, or is he drinking his own Kool-Aid? Does he also believe that he was in actual consenting relationships with us and that he actually fell in love with us? It's so confusing. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what any of these assholes think they did. It doesn't change what they did. Like, it doesn't matter what story they're telling themselves. But I like what you said about the Facebook group. And I think that, that's obviously why Diana and I are doing the podcast. And, we had Faith Colson on as a guest, and that's why she's doing so much of her advocacy work on the, legislative level. And I get so excited when I like meet survivors that then turn their experience into action with the sole intention of like creating community or helping others or changing things so that it's easier for the next wave of victims, because unfortunately there will be more, right? Like, it's statistically very common. It happens way more than people think that it does. So I just think it's really cool when people can take shitty things and make something good out of it.
Well, thank you. And it really is turning into exactly what I wanted it to be. So it's really exciting. Like, I mean, again, it doesn't have to be a huge group of people. It just has to be meaningful. It has to be impactful. And I think that it's making a difference. And that's all I wanted for people, was to have each other. So, because connection, that's like the number one healing thing, I think, is connection.
Yeah.
For sure.
Finding someone else who you can talk to and who's not going to judge you and who's not going to not validate your experiences. So yeah, thank you for creating that space and for coming on our podcast.
Thank you.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your program publishing company? Give her the pen. How would you describe it, Megan?
Yeah, so it is a coaching company, and it's called, like you said, it's called Give Her the Pen. And my sister-in-law and I co-founded it together because we worked on the book together. She was my developmental editor. And I just started feeling like, how do we give this gift? I just knew how healing it was for me to write my story and to learn to not be afraid of myself. Like, oh, if I share this, I'm not going to be loved. And so I thought, how can we help other women to do that? And so my sister-in-law and I started this company. It's in its infancy. So right now we just work by recommendation, basically, or what do you call that? Reference? By referral. That's the reference. Yes. Referral. So I'm working on a manuscript right now, and I absolutely love that. And so if there's somebody out there and they've either written something already and they want somebody to do the services we offer a developmental edit, which just basically means we read what you've written and then we give you feedback on that. And that can include just an editorial letter where we give you next steps, like what you're doing well, improvements, suggestions, and then or we can go the next level and we can also do an annotated manuscript, which is where we actually do notes. Like, we actually go page for page, and that includes some like line editing stuff. And we get into that. I love like both the big picture stuff and more the line editing. And we do coaching sessions. So someone just wants a session to say, hey, I have a story. I'm not really sure though where I want to go with it. They can schedule a coaching session with us. And not just for nonfiction writers, and not just for people that have suffered severe trauma. Like, you don't have to have gone through something horrible to work with us. You don't.
That's good to know.
Yes.
Good to know.
That's a hilarious prereq. Just a FYI.
Yeah, just an FYI. Yeah. So
you don't have to be a trauma victim.
No, because we say your voice is the point. is that all we want to do is we want to lift up the voices of women. And
Nice. Hell yeah.
and that's it. So if you're writing a novel, if you're writing your own story, whatever, we are here to help. So people, I think they can check out our website. They can reach out to me, and we can go from there. So, but like I said, we're in our little baby infancy, so we're not ready to take on tons and tons of clients. But the work that we do, we feel very proud of.
That's awesome.
And the website is, one more time, sorry.
GiveHerThePen.com.
You mentioned people could also get in touch with you. Where could people find you?
Safest, most official way is just go to meganfarison.com. And then there is a form area, like there's a contact form you can fill out.
Okay.
So I feel like that's probably the way that probably feels safest to me. But also there are people that just reach out through Facebook to say, I just read your book and I just want to tell you I appreciate it or whatever. That's totally fine too. So whatever people are comfortable with. So.
Okay.
Nice.
Wonderful. One last question that I would say is probably the most important question. Is it true that anyone can learn how to sing? Are some people just shut the fuck up?
Girl, are you
or is everyone really capable of learning?
Well, some people shut the fuck up. Hilarious question.
I was so excited you asked that question. Yes, it's true. It's true because I think what's so funny is like, people with basketball, let's say, right? Like you can call yourself a basketball player if you're not Michael Jordan. People will say, I play basketball. But I think there's this weird thing with singing where it's like, if you don't sound like Lady Gaga, you're like, I can't call myself a singer. It's like, no, you have a voice. You have a voice, yes. I'm so excited you asked me that because I am also a voice coach. Like that is my primary thing that I do. And I love working with like mature voices. Adult women are my favorite. Because so a lot of the women I work with are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And they show up sort of feeling like, oh, my glory days were back, when I was this age. Or some of them come to me and are just like, I just want to feel confident singing for the first time ever in my life. Because when I was young, a choir teacher told me I was terrible. So we work through that trauma, and I just love it because then they get to see what they're capable of doing. And it's amazing. It's amazing. So yes, I totally live in the camp of, no, can anyone sing like Lady Gaga? Can anyone sing like that? No, but you can sing like you. And if you're speaking, if you have a voice with which to speak, you have a voice with which to sing. I am clearly so pumped you asked me that question. Did you see me like freaking light up?
Diana's like, so I'm going to take voice lessons.
I would love that. Listen, because you had me on the podcast, I want to give you a pro bono voice lesson if you will accept it. I want to do it. Let me do it. Let me do it. It's my joy. It is my pride and joy. Okay. We're doing this thing. We are doing this thing.
All right.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to follow up with you, Megan. And that is so sweet of you to offer.
You will be safe with me. I promise.
Well, Megan, thank you so much for being on the show and for your vulnerability and for engaging in a hard conversation with us and with me in particular about my levels of comfort reading the book.
About your hatred towards me.
No.
You're like, I know. You are welcome. This has been a pleasure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think we're going to be okay. I think it's going to be fine. It's just three gals just talking about being abused and manipulated. Isn't that easy?
What could possibly go wrong?